Hi, I'm Patricia Grabarek.
And I'm Katina Sawyer, and welcome to the Worker Being Podcast. Today we have Patricia reading an article and telling us all about it. I'm excited to hear more about the topic that you picked. So could you give us just like a quick highlight before we do a little recap of what's been going on with us?
Yes. So this topic was actually a very popular article that we wrote around work-life conflict for those women or individuals that are single and without children. And so this article that we're going to talk about today is an older piece from 2006, but one of the first ones that really looked at work-life conflict of never married women without children and compared it to married women and married women with children. So it was a really interesting piece and kind of getting at some biases against single women or women without children that they don't have other responsibilities outside of work. So it's kind of it's an interesting topic, a little bit frustrating because I think this is a major issue that I've heard a lot of people talk about, especially after we wrote the article. A lot of people reached out to me to talk about it and tell me their experience. So hopefully this will resonate to the podcast listeners as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm really excited that we're talking about this topic because I think people are pretty aware of the conflicts that exist for people that have children or are partnered or whatever the case may be, but often assume that folks that don't have a partner and don't have children just have no life outside of work. So I think that's why it rings a bell with people and why it's a good topic to talk about because it's not frequently discussed. So I'm excited to hear more about it. But before we dive into that, I know that you have some exciting news to share. Last time we talked, you shared some of the stressful stuff that's been going on with you. And it seems that you've come to a place where you have some resolution. So I think our listeners would like to hear an update on everything that's been going on with you.
Sure. Yeah, there's been a lot. So we talked about how my wedding venue canceled, and that was a big bummer. But last weekend, my sister and I actually went out to Hawaii, kind of last minute. We're like, you know what? I think it's going to be easier to find a place if we just go and see it. So we went and we saw a bunch of different venues, met with my planner out there, and it was awesome. Like, we found a great space. We're really excited about it. My sister, she is an event, well, I guess she's like director of events or something like that as her title, at the Intercontinental in San Diego. And so she's all up in the lingo of events. And so she was my little cheerleader running around and getting all the right questions asked and answered that I would never have thought of. So that was huge and super, super helpful. But I'm feeling a lot better about it. And Danny actually stayed back with the little Nittany cat as she, we didn't really want to leave her yet with anybody else since, her stitches are out now from her surgery, but she's still like a little, I don't know, she's acting pretty normal, but we just felt sad to leave her alone. So Danny stayed back with her and said that he would trust whatever I decide. And we FaceTimed him a lot and he kind of saw everything. So I think we're all feeling a lot better about the situation. So that's good. Yay.
Yay.
A wedding venue.
Yay. You made it happen. And it was super helpful that Martha knows all that stuff because I don't know any of those. I don't know anything to ask for anything. And I remember when I was planning, like, I had to ask around to people, like, what can you even, like, negotiate on? What am I missing? Like, so it's so helpful to have somebody that's, like, in the event space to help you with that because it's complicated when it comes to weddings. And so it's good that you had her and now you're all set and feeling a lot better.
Yeah, it was huge. I mean, she was even just like at one point we were talking contracts with this one person and she was like, I think we're going to do 10% off of, the appetizers and blah, blah, blah. And the girl was like, okay. And I was like, what? Like, what just happened?
You can just say that?
I was like, you can just say we're going to do 10% and they're just going to give you 10%.
Yeah.
And later on she was like, yeah, it's like pretty standard. And I was like, oh, I guess. Okay. Well, I would not have known that. Like, I didn't know it was standard that they would give you 10% off.
No.
But I guess that's why you ask for 10 because that's generally what people will do, and that's why I shouldn't ask for like 25. Right. So I don't know. It was just funny because I just had no idea, and I was like watching her do her magic. It was very impressive.
There are a lot of rules that I don't understand, but it would have been nice to have a Martha during wedding planning. So it's good that you have one. Yay!
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, so that's super exciting, and I can't wait until we won't be podcasting live from Hawaii, but it would be fun. It would be funny if we did.
Maybe we could do a 5-minute mini-sode. Say, hi, we're in Hawaii. Let us have fun. Bye.
I'm going to walk around your wedding with my headphones on and microphone and do a live stream from your wedding. That would be hilarious.
Oh my goodness. But
well,
it'll be fun.
Wait.
I'm very excited.
It'll be super fun. It will be super fun. We're going to have an awesome time. And obviously, we'll keep track of everything on Instagram for everybody else. But yay, that's awesome. Yay. And I'm actually about to drive to Pittsburgh for my cousin's wedding. So after we're done here, I'm getting in the car and driving to a wedding. So lots of wedding related things happening here, and it'll be super fun. I'm really excited to go hang out with my family and do exciting things and dance. And I love dancing so much. So basically, like when weddings happen, I'm there for the dancing. That's like primary focus for me. So I'm super excited about that. And just getting to hang out with family and friends for the weekend, I think will be really fun. So all good things. So last time we were like kind of like down in the dumpers when we were talking, and this time things are looking up.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're gonna have so much fun at this wedding in Pittsburgh. I can't wait to see pictures and hear all about it.
Yeah.
We're actually doing my bridal shower this weekend, so
that's
wedding
right.
stuff. Which my sister has also planned. So my poor sister has been like really put to work the past couple of weeks for the wedding. She's just all over everything, but very much appreciate it. And she also loves this stuff. So I think she's been a little bit stressed out, but I think she also enjoys it. Hopefully. I hope so. I hope I'm not making her do a bunch of stuff that she hates. I mean, granted, she did get to go to Hawaii, and I bought her a massage while we were there too. So we got to do massages and stuff. So
look at that.
Hopefully she's okay with all the work that she's been doing for my wedding.
I'm sure she is. I'm sure she's okay with it. That happens everybody's wedding. It takes an army to get all this stuff together. So I wouldn't worry about it. I'm sure that she's very happy to be helpful.
I hope so. Well, I appreciate it more than anything. So yay. So lots of wedding stuff. You'll be going to wedding. I'll be going to my bridal shower, which I don't know. It makes me a little bit anxious because I don't love being the focus like that.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I'm sure it'll be fine, and I'm sure I'll have fun, and it's all people I love. But it's just I have to get over that because obviously the wedding's going to be like that too.
Yeah. That was actually the part about getting married that I was most apprehensive about. Was like I'm totally fine with being the center of attention when it's very interesting. I don't know. I have no idea psychologically what this means about me, but I'm very fine. And maybe you're the same way. I'm totally fine with being the center of attention when I'm like presenting or teaching, or like I feel very competent in that area. But when it's just like people looking at me and they're like looking at like my outfit and like hair and like, I don't know that, like, I'm not trained in like, being like amazing looking in pictures or what. That's not my forte. So I feel like those things make me really stressed out. So like going wedding dress shopping, I was super stressed out. Like I didn't like the idea of doing that. I was like not super stressed about shower and wedding stuff, but like my primary concerns were like, oh, there's going to be a lot of people looking at me. And like, as a person who doesn't mind being the center of attention professionally, it's kind of interesting to not want to be the center of attention personally.
I'm exactly the same way. Like I have no problem speaking in front of a crowd and presenting or teaching or, whatever, being at a client meeting and leading a conversation. No issue at all. But when I think the same thing. It's like when people are just like looking at me for like other reasons. I don't know. It's just feels weird. And also I think it's more of the like, they're celebrating you. I think I'm not good at like taking compliments or like
right.
those types of things. So it's like everyone's focusing on you as like a person. Like they're there because they love you and they want to tell you that and they want to share that with you and they want to experience like your marriage with you, all that kind of stuff. And it's like super cute and like I love doing it for other people, but like I don't know, I just feel like I'm a little uncomfortable taking that You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
It's a different kind of attention. And like,
Yeah.
I think both of us have been so like focused on like our place or area that we feel comfortable is like school and work, and like this is like out of that realm, so it feels kind of weird to be like I'm in charge of like, or like I'm in the middle of all this attention for like a dress and hair and like I don't know, you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
that's just like not normally what we're doing, so it feels more like scrutinizing or something, because that's not an area where I feel like I'm like very masterful, you know.
Yes.
So
Completely
yeah,
agree. Completely
anyway,
agree.
well, you'll have fun regardless. I
Oh, I'm
had a great
sure.
time at my shower, but yeah.
I'm sure it'll be super fun. I'm excited, but I just the idea of it sometimes makes me a little bit nervous. I'm like, oh, what if I say something weird?
What are you gonna say?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I'm sure it'll be fine. I don't know. It's just like everyone's looking at you for a reaction too. I think that's the other thing.
Yeah.
It's like they
That's
want to
true.
see like how do you react to the decor and everything the way it's set up, and I'm sure it's gonna be beautiful and super cute, but like everyone's looking to see how you react. And I'm sure at your wedding, everyone's looking to see how like you two interact together and the vows and like how you react. You know what I mean? Everyone's watching like your reaction, and so I don't know. It's just it's whatever. It's a weird thing. It's funny, but
Yeah.
I know that we're similar in that, and I'm sure other people feel the same way.
Yeah. I remember before the wedding, someone told me like, which if anyone's listening and someone tells you this, like, I don't really know what it means, but it's not, I don't know if it's like not true or what it is, but like, they were like, don't lock your legs when you're saying your vows because you'll fall over.
Oh yeah,
And
you can faint.
yeah, but okay, but like, I don't know what the definition of locking your legs is, but when you like get that in your head, no matter what way, because like, how are you supposed to stand?
Are
if
you
your
just
legs
squatting up
aren't,
there?
so like, I like a lot of people said that to me, and I guess I like didn't really think about like what does that mean until I was like actually up there. And then it was like, I'm thinking the whole time, like, I think my legs are locked. But really, I was just standing like a normal person stands, but like your legs are straight when you stand. So I don't know exactly like when I'm standing and when I'm locking. Like I was very confused. But anyway, I didn't think about the distinction until I was actually up there. And then the whole time I was up there, I was like, I think my legs might be locked. Are they locked? I don't know. And like, I'm like, what if I pass out? Like, what if I just fall over right now because my legs are locked? And then I'm like thinking like, well, I don't want to like bend because then like then you look weird. So the whole time I was up on the altar, I was just like in a panic that my legs were locked. So like just stupid stuff like that.
That's so
is
funny.
like terrible. So anyway, just everybody in the world at all these events, just have fun. And if people like, I don't know, give you scary advice, just do what you would normally do. Like you're not going to say anything weird at your shower because you don't say weird stuff. Like I'm not going to pass out at my wedding because I'm standing, because I've never stood in a way that made me pass out. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, I don't understand what this is.
Oh my gosh, I'm like dying. That's so funny. I'm just imagining you like panicking. Like, is Armeni's bed too much, too little? Am I like,
I know.
You're like, if someone's watching you, you're like going up and down. Like they're just because you're like bending your legs.
Like what are you supposed to do? Like it looks completely normal in the video, but like nobody knows in my head. Like the whole time I'm like going through the motions of this, I'm like, oh my god, like I think like what if I just pass out right now because my leg is straight? Like I don't know. Anyway,
Oh my
that's
gosh,
life.
that's so good, so good.
But speaking of weddings, now let's talk about single people. So
Yes.
could you tell us what your article is and who wrote it?
Yeah. So the article is called "Understanding the Work-Life Conflict of Never Married Women Without Children," and it's written by Hamilton, Gordon, and Whelanberry in 2006 in Women in Management Review. So it's a pretty early article on this topic, which is embarrassing for the field, I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Everyone just focused on work-family conflict for so long, and the family component, meaning the traditional family, a man, a woman, and children. So, I mean, we know that that's not the case. Not everybody's in this exact same type of traditional family, but that's where the focus was. So this article was kind of starting to get into this question about what does it look like for people that are not in this traditional family. So this study, what it did is it actually surveyed a number of people within two healthcare organizations and a financial organization. They sent out like thousands and thousands of surveys and got well over 1,000 back. And they talked to never married women without children. They talked to married women without children and married women with children. So they did a comparison across all of the groups. And just the general kind of high level overview of what they found was that, surprise, surprise, never married, childless women also experienced conflict at work between their work and their life. They did experience more work interfering with life conflict than life interfering with work conflict. And that is different than individuals with children. So people with children did experience some of their life interfering with their work more. But other than that, there was the same level of conflict. And I think that's really important. It's just that there's really no difference between never married childless women, married childless women, and married women with children in terms of work-life conflict.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think part of what is important also to highlight is the focus on women here is not to be exclusionary of men, but I'm sure the article talks about how when it comes to work and life, even though we're moving closer in terms of equity with regard to how women and men split tasks, women still, even women who are breadwinners and are working more hours outside of the house, still do more of the housework compared to men from an hours basis, on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis. And women tend to spend a significant portion of time more in childcare than men, even when they're both working equal amounts, or even when the woman's working more hours than the male. So while there are certainly couples that split things equally and couples that where, you know, there might be a stay-at-home dad or a dad that puts in more time into the housework or childcare responsibilities, on the whole, women are still spending more time on those kinds of responsibilities than men are. So the idea of work and family conflict is more ever present when it comes to thinking about the presence of children and the extent to which children might make an impact on the experience of work and family conflict for women compared to men.
Exactly. And you know, the article did talk a lot about how like right in the beginning was just like, we're looking at this group and then there's so many other groups. Like they specifically specified never married women.
Yeah.
They said that there's other types of women that are not that are single, that are not married, you know, widowed, divorced, whatever it might be. There's I mean, they did look at married women without children, so that's another category, but they kind of narrowed it down on like one group to just make a point. I think is really what it came down to. It's just such an early piece. So here's another group that we haven't talked about, we never think about. Let's show that they have this issue, and then let's start to expand. So it was kind of like an initial look, because then there's obviously, you know, never married men without children that probably
Yeah.
experience some of the same issues. Then there's probably married couples without children that might get some sort of stigma because they don't have children.
Yeah.
There's obviously same-sex couples that might experience different stereotypes around work-life conflict. So there's a lot of different types of groups, and you know, it's not just women, it's not just never married, it's not just childless. There's so many different kind of patterns and groups that you can look at to figure out what's going on with work-life conflict. So they just focused on one to keep it simple and to make a point, is what I kind of understood from it.
Yeah.
But there's definitely a lot more areas, and I think there's more research starting to be done in some of these looking at some of these other groups.
Did they sample particular industries, or could you talk a little bit more about who was in the different samples, like what their ages were? Because I would be curious to see if the women who were married and had children were in a different age category than the women that were not married and didn't have children, because the work conflict thing is interesting, because you would wonder if it's not that women that don't have children and are not married and have never been married might be seen in the workplace as folks that like you can dump a lot of work on, and then also you know, that they might think, well, this is they're focusing on their career because that's the phase that they're in. So maybe people ask them to take on more at work, and they are saying yes to that because they feel like they can't come up with a reason that would be believable within the workplace to say no to it. So I'm trying to think about like
Mm-hmm.
what phases in careers these women are and what,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a great question. And actually, they took that into account because they only looked at women 35 plus.
Okay. That's cool.
So I think they were trying to account for the fact that, women in their 20s, even early 30s might still be like might be dating, might be kind of focusing on their career before starting their family. So, and
Yeah.
this is an assumption that 35 plus means they're choosing to never be married. I don't know
Right.
if that's not really true, and that they probably, some of these women may eventually get married and may have children at some point, but these women are a little bit later stage, so they're in a more similar life phase as the as what you would typically think a married person with children looks like. So these are all women, all categories, the never married, and then the two different married categories are all women above 35, and they're
Okay.
healthcare employees and financial organization employees. So there's like nurses in here, there's like insurance brokers and I don't know, stock brokers, I guess, and like really intense financial positions, and then
Yeah.
healthcare positions, which are also pretty intense.
Okay.
So you're looking at I would say pretty high stress jobs too. Um, and they did spend a lot of time actually talking about how companies often see these never married childless women as, more stable employees, right? They're people that don't have families, so they're focusing on their career, like you said, and therefore they're generally the prime candidates for more projects, working
Hmm.
later, working on weekends, traveling more, all those things, just because they don't have children or a spouse at home.
Yeah.
They also mentioned something that was interesting, and I know that this, Katina, probably goes to some of the work that you've done in like the women's studies area, but they talked a lot about roles and like how for so long, the salient roles for women are wife and mother, right? That's something for centuries was the case. But how we basically, as a society, ignore the other roles, even though women are becoming, obviously, there's tons of women in the workplace now. It's not like a concern that women can't work, right? But people are still not focusing on women in that role as their career role or other roles outside of being a mother or wife, like an aunt or a friend or a volunteer or whatever it
Hmm.
might be. So it spent a lot of time just, kind of just talking through like the beginning sections of the article around how we need to be a little bit broader in our definition of what women's roles look like and what roles are actually salient, and that just because you don't have a child or you're not married, your family role might still be very important to you. It's just not what people traditionally think your role should be at that point in your life.
Yeah. And I know that there are a lot of people, even in families, with the way that the family dynamic works, that if you're somebody in a family who doesn't have children, just for example, if there's elder care or something that needs to happen, or other kinds of, family responsibilities that might require some coordination or healthcare or whatever, oftentimes families will ask people, or the person who doesn't have children of their own or whatever will volunteer to take those things on. So there may be these unknown sort of burdens that people are bearing, that still take up a lot of time, and they're still family related, but people are just assuming they don't have because they're thinking about women's role in caretaking so narrowly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point because they actually looked. So one of the findings was around benefits. So they asked um, these different women about how important benefits were to them at an
Mm-hmm.
organization. And the benefits included things like childcare and um, maternity leave and health insurance, and elder care was one of them. So there was a difference where it basically went into this pattern that married women with children found more of these benefits so they were important. Then it was married women without children was the second group that thought they were pretty important, and then the least important, the group that rated most of these as the least important was the never married without children group. So if
Okay.
that makes sense, like if you're married and you have kids, you think most of these benefits are really important, and as you kind of trickle down the groups to get to the never married childless group,
Yeah.
they really don't. Uh, they don't see the benefits as important, except for healthcare and elder care.
Huh. That's
So
interesting.
yeah, since you bring up the elder care point, was really interesting that that was really called out here because that population do think that elder care benefits are really important to them because they're probably, they're probably dealing with some of that. At least a good portion of them. Like if you think about it, these individuals are 35 plus, so their
Right.
parents would be in that aging category, assuming that they're still close with their parents or aunts or uncles or anything like that.
Right.
So there probably is a fair amount of elder care. And to your point, if they have siblings and siblings that have children, then they might be more likely to be put into a care role for those elderly relatives.
That's really interesting. Yeah, so I think that might speak to, and obviously they don't have data specifically on that, but like that might speak to this idea that for these life related things that seem, overwhelming potentially to someone who might have young kids or something at home, that they might get more easily delegated to women who are still seen as caretakers, but may not be caretaking for children at that time, that like they would be more likely to take on other kinds of care. So the assumption that, just because women don't have children and aren't married, that they're not caretaking in some way. Because I think societally, basically, what happens is that women are socialized to be caretakers and people see women as caretakers. And so as a result, when a caretaking task comes up, people are more likely to delegate it to women. And this looks like, or what this is sounding like is that some of those non-child related caretaking tasks that still might take up a lot of time get potentially delegated to women without children. So that's really, really interesting. And I think it speaks to a broader, understanding who's in your workforce and trying to figure out what are the benefits that they would find most useful, who needs what, and what does your population look like specifically, and not just making assumptions based on, oh, well, we have a really young population, a lot of single people, not a lot of people with children. So I think that all that they really want is probably like a gym and a ping pong table or something. You know what I mean? And actually thinking about, well, what benefits do they find valuable? And similarly with people with children, not making assumptions about what they might find useful, but actually like getting to understand what each group or variation within group wants in terms of benefits from the organization.
You're just like making all these comments. I go straight to a point that the article made.
Oh,
I feel
good.
like you're very
Yeah.
aligned because the other thing that they looked at was how often these benefits were used.
Mm-hmm.
And the same pattern emerged where the never married without children women were the least likely to use any of the benefits.
Okay.
And then married women without children were next. Like they were a little bit more likely, and then married women with children were the most likely to use benefits because a lot of the main benefits were things like maternity leave, childcare. They had childcare, after school care, like all these different benefits that had to do with children specifically, being part-time, flexible with schedules. So if you're coming back from leave, you can go part-time for a bit, like those types of things that are all very much related to being a family-friendly work environment with people with children. But there are a lot fewer benefits that had to do with, the types of flexibility that maybe someone without children would be interested in. So
Yeah.
it was kind of interesting to see that. So we saw that that population, the never married without children population, really using benefits a lot less frequently. So then that is an important point that you're making, that if these people are not using the benefits, they're not seeing those benefits, they don't see it as like a good thing that you have this in place because it's not helpful to them. So you need to really think about how it's not a one size fits all approach to benefits. Not everybody's going to need all the benefits. And so you need to think more broadly than just one traditional family structure that might need some help and some benefits to keep them in the workplace. You might want to think about other things that might be important to those that are not in that family structure. And I think elder care is a good one, but there's probably other things too that we can think about. They also mentioned like flexible work schedules and telecommuting, and how those that are married with children are more likely to use that. And I'm really curious. This is not something they were able to study, but I'm really curious if that is because of they used it more because they were allowed to use it more, or if they
Yeah.
used it more just because they wanted to. And
Yeah.
from the people that have reached out to me after writing the article on our website, a lot of people have told me that they aren't allowed to work from home as often as their coworkers that have children. Because if their kids are sick or if they have to stay home from school for some reason or whatever it might be, they're always allowed to go home and work from home. And then the people that don't have children, maybe work from home like twice in their entire time at that organization because they were being pressured to stay in the office. So even though the benefit existed, it wasn't really available to everybody in these examples that
Right.
I was hearing
Right.
anecdotally.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it goes back to like, it would be really interesting to take this article and create a checklist that's more expansive of things that, if you could take a look at what are benefits across all different workplaces that people who are not in the same family situation, so they don't have children, they are not partnered, and so you're looking at how can we understand what benefits they do find useful, and then create like a more expansive checklist to say, okay, well, which benefits are people actually using, not just so heavy towards benefits that we would already think people with children would use more frequently, and see how that pans out. Because right now it looks like, okay, well, your benefits programs are primarily benefiting people who have children and are partnered. But if you included a more comprehensive set of benefits, you might see like, oh, people actually take advantage of benefits at the same rate. It's just that they might utilize different benefits at different points in their life or depending upon their family structure.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's kind of an interesting thing to revisit that study with, would be, creating a more comprehensive checklist, and then maybe the picture of who uses benefits more frequently might change if you had more varied benefits on the list.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that people would probably use benefits to the same degree as long as it was available to them, something that would be useful to them. Like I'm not going to use childcare for my non-existent child.
Right.
So yeah, I think that would be a really interesting follow-up. And I don't know if there is one. I'd have to look into it more. I didn't see anything that like quickly jumped out, but I'm sure that there's some work kind of in this space since 2006. I would love to see it much more broadly too. It's like everybody self-identify, what kind of life they're in, right? How are they partnered if they're partnered? Um, what do they have children, no children, any other dependents? What does that look like? And being able to see like differences across all groups, all different I would say like minority family structures
Yeah.
than the typical one. Because I bet there would be differences, and it might be really I think it'd be really important for organizations to know, okay, so for our never married folks, this benefit is really great. But then for our same sex couples, this is what would be better. And for our individuals that have, elder care responsibilities, this is important. So like just understanding like what it all looks like from all these different areas, I think is huge, so that you're being very inclusive in your workplace, and your workplace has this feeling of inclusivity versus feeling like those single people without children are really kind of being pushed into this box where they're just the workhorses and we're going to just put everything on them and overwork them because that's all they care about. They have nothing else to worry about.
Yeah. I think from a managerial perspective, it's probably important to really have conversations with people about what benefits, what work-life challenges they're facing, and then try to brainstorm what benefits would be most useful to them. So really connecting with people and understanding who's in your organization and how can you advocate for benefits that would actually impact the work-life challenges, not making assumptions about what would be helpful for people, but rather having conversations, asking them what kinds of challenges they're facing, because the, childless single women are reporting that they're experiencing work-to-life conflict. So why are they experiencing that? And what could be useful from a work perspective, a life perspective? How can the organization facilitate less conflict? I think is a good question. And to have the same conversation with individuals that have children and are partnered, just to get more of that knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess as an individual, it would probably be important for single people to understand that and if you're single, you don't have children, like it's not outside of your realm to ask for benefits that would be helpful to you, or to ask about benefits that would be helpful to you when you're looking for a job or when you're discussing things with your manager, because it will end up mattering down the line, and it is a real concern. So kind of
Hmm.
feeling validated and asking, I think, could be helpful for people when they're looking for positions, so that they don't experience that conflict later.
Yeah, I think that's huge because I think there's a almost a stigma even from the single person's perspective that, well, I don't have kids, so I guess I can do that. Like there's like you fall into that trap too easily. I think some
Mm-hmm.
people, after a certain period of time get frustrated and will realize that it's not fair, but I think at first you might fall into that. I mean, I definitely did when I first started at Infor. I remember Jill asked like our team if anyone can do X thing on, like, it was a travel thing, and I volunteered and I told her, I was like, I don't have any kids. I know it's like a holiday weekend, so I'm happy to do it. And she was like, I don't care if you don't have kids. Like, you have other
Right.
things in your life. Like, that, don't do it because of that. Like, if you actually are available and willing to do it, great. But, like, don't tell me that it's because you don't have kids. Like, that's not
Right. Right.
a thing. So I really appreciated that. And I was like, oh, like, no, like, obviously, like, I have a life too. I have other responsibilities. I have friends, I have family, I have things going on in my life outside of Infor, and so I deserve that same balance that somebody with children does. So I do appreciate that I'm in a workplace that does expect that, and respect that everybody has their own thing. It doesn't matter if you have children or no children or whatever your situation might be, but not everybody's there. And I think it's, as an individual, trying to figure out like how do you broach that conversation, because I actually had a good friend talk to me about their situation, and she was just saying that it was really like, reading the article was helpful because she didn't realize that she was like not alone in this. She just like kind of felt alone because everyone around her at work has children and she
Yeah.
doesn't, and she's always expected to come in on the holidays and pick up the slack on the weekends and work later hours. Like, everyone else is leaving at 4 to go pick up their kids and she's there till 7. So like things like that, and they're just completely taking advantage of her. And she's starting to push back now, but for a while, she was newer to the organization, and people just totally took advantage. And they always use their kids as an excuse for everything. So
Yeah.
I think that that it's really unfair. She's unhappy with that. She's really upset with her boss with the way that she's been treated. Because like her boss just takes off and goes to deal with their kids, and then leaves her to deal with all the other stuff that might be going on in the evenings. So I think that it's really important for managers and leaders to recognize um, that they shouldn't be giving preferential treatment to anybody because of children. I think there's an important um, flexibility that needs to occur in workplaces when people have children and have that care responsibility. I mean, elder care too, but
Yeah.
also being fair. Your expectations for one group shouldn't be much higher and stricter than expectations for another group. If there's flexibility to leave at 4 to pick up your kids, well, maybe your single employee should also leave at 4 to go meet with their friends or go to yoga or whatever they want to do. Like, they have their own life goals and things that they might want to be accomplishing. So why should they have to stay 3 more hours at work just because they don't have kids? Like, someone made that decision to have children and they wanted to have that kind of family, and that's great. But if you're deciding not to do that, you shouldn't be punished because of it. It's not like she's getting
Absolutely.
paid more.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. And I think that's what it's all about, right? Is making sure that you're being fair, that you're connecting with people as individuals, you're understanding what people need in order to have the best work-life balance possible. And everybody, is going to, as long as everybody's getting their work done and doing a good job performing, they, deserve to be able to do whatever they want in their free time. And everyone's free time is just as valuable, regardless of dependents or partners, etc. People need that time to recharge and recoup, and how people choose to spend it is their own choice. But managers and other folks shouldn't be deciding for individuals how they spend their free time. So yeah, I think that this is a really interesting article and definitely has a lot of cool implications for us to talk about. So don't just assume that people that don't have children and are single don't feel conflict between work and life. They do. And working with everybody to decrease the conflicts that they experience help people to be more healthy and productive. So I think that this was a really good takeaway for people and a good reminder. And if you are single and childless, don't feel uncomfortable speaking up about the fact that you have a life too.
Yes, 100% agree. Yeah, I think this article is just a really good reminder. You know, if you hear this story and you hear this research, I think that in and of itself helps people realize, oh yeah, like that this exists. I think people just don't even think about it. So I found it really interesting and very inspiring. And I'm really excited that the topic did resonate with so many people. So I'm hoping that continues and other people listening can take charge of their life if they don't have children and want to take some life back from what's being taken from them at work. So good luck out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for reading this article, Patricia. I loved it.
Of course, of course. For all of you listening, we would love to hear your stories, so please reach out. You can email us at workerbeing@gmail.com. You can find us on our website at workerbeing.com, and you can find us on social media at workerbeing on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Thanks for listening. Bye. The Worker Being podcast is hosted by us, Patricia Grabarek
and Katina Sawyer, and produced by Allie Johnson.